Hello and welcome to the Love is Blind Wrap Up. I'm Asia and I am here to talk about Love is Blind, episodes 2 through 4 of season 5. And I am not alone, of course. I'm here with my awesome co host, the sugar to my sugar butt, or the sugar butt to my sugar. We'll figure out
They're
which
too
is which.
similar.
They're too similar. We'll figure out which is which. Mary Kukowski. Mary, how are you?
I'm doing good. Although, that did remind me the one time that I dated someone who we had regular pet names for each other, we would just both call each other Muffin, but we wouldn't say it like that. Like whoever said it first would say Muffin, and then the other person would say other Muffin. But it changed depending on who said it first.
Yeah.
You're like, come on, Muffin. Okay, other Muffin. Which is
That's
also
kind of
funny because my
adorable.
mom, when I was a baby, used to call me Muffin Butt. So I was like, it's a little like sugar butt.
That is funny. I like that. Muffin and other muffin.
Yeah, it was easy because then you just didn't have to remember like which one is which.
Yeah, it's just whoever initiates it.
Yeah.
That's funny. Well, very excited to talk about the rest of this first batch. If you didn't catch us talking about the premiere with our collab with Nothing But Netflix with Rob Has a Podcast, make sure you go check that out. We talked to Rob's sister Nino and Chappelle about the premiere, so we had a great time just getting to know these people. And then now we're digging deeper. We're going into the rest of their time in the pods. So we have a lot to unpack. But this is all spoiler territory. So if you plan to go back and watch this drop, go watch it and then come back. And we're just giving our thoughts on everything that happened because a lot happened. Make sure you go subscribe to our Love at First Sight feed. That's where you can get all of our podcasts, as well as subscribing to the Rob Has a Podcast YouTube channel, where we are there and our faces are there. So maybe you're already watching us here on YouTube. But make sure you go subscribe to the Rob Has a Podcast YouTube channel. And then make sure you go give us a 5-star rating or review on our Love at First Sight feed. We love to know that y'all are enjoying the content and that you want more. So definitely let us know your thoughts. And yeah, just get out how you feel about these people, but leave us a 5-star review. All right. You ready to dive into it?
Oh, my mind is going 50 different places about where I want to even start. This season so far has made me question things about this show that I've never had to question before. Format things, etc. Because Asia, I don't know if you've thought about it like this, but when you picture the show working, especially the pod phase, we know that there's many, many, many people who start out. Usually it's something like 20 women and 20 men, maybe not that many, but it's a lot, 15 women.
Yeah.
And then we only ever follow a few couples. Do you picture that everyone stays in that pod phase for the same amount of time? Or do you feel like after the first couple of days, if there's a bunch of people who feel like they're not connecting with anyone, they just go home?
I definitely think I think it's the latter. So like, how we found out that like the proposals and everything that happens on the same day. But something I did notice, because like with that knowledge, I did notice that we saw JP and Taylor there after their proposal aired. I was like, usually we don't see the couple that's already happened. I guess they're just like chilling, but we actively saw JP and Taylor. And then the group just dwindled down. Like there definitely weren't as many people and they're dancing and singing and talking about robbing the cradle as there were at the beginning. So I do think that there's a certain point that people are like, okay, I just have not established a strong enough a connection.
Which is confusing because there were one or two people that we did see a lot, but we never once saw in the pods, unless they did in the beginning montage. We saw Renee and is it Mariah or there was someone else. I remember there was someone who a guy mentioned. He was like, "Oh yes, my number
Miriam.
Miriam." Right? They're like, "My number one is so and so. Oh, is yours, and yours is Miriam." But we've like never seen Renee or Miriam in the pods, and so my question with that is, it could be a couple things. Number one, we haven't exited the pods yet at the end of this drop. This first 4
Oh my
episodes, we still are
gosh.
in the pods. So my part one of my theory is there going to be a whole new couple that we get like a 1-day drop of?
Yeah.
Or do they come back? Or is this the scenario where it's like there were a couple people who got engaged, but we just don't follow their stories? I feel like, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like in previous seasons we would see more of random other people in the pods, even if they didn't get engaged.
Yeah, and typically though, I feel like it was only if that person was wrapped up with, like, if they were also going on dates with one of the other main people.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, so, like, I don't know, we would be following, like, Renee and Miriam if they are only going on dates with each other and they don't get engaged, or they get engaged and we're not following them, then they're
Yeah.
like, because, like, last season, we didn't get to see, I guess breaking news, Jackie and Josh broke up, if you hadn't seen it. But Jackie, so we didn't get to see Josh on his dates with Monica, right? Even though we saw Josh with Jackie.
Right, but we didn't even get Josh and Jackie until, like, the last episode of the first
until
drop.
she was, like, contemplating between him and Marshall.
Right.
So, maybe you're right. Maybe we might finish out the pods because at the end of this drop, we have 3 couples that have gotten engaged.
Which is small. Like,
yes, exactly.
I feel like, and I know that they show at the end the sort of like, next time on coming attractions. I didn't notice anybody that we hadn't seen already, but what I did notice was a lot of like people who have broken up in the pods, like meet up again.
Like, why are we seeing a lot of Johnny in this preview?
It's definitely a little frustrating because I do feel like there are certain stories that they're really trying to curate here, which I guess, look, if they're important, and then it makes sense why they're showing them to us. But this season so far, like especially in the pods, we would get long, like 15-20-minute scenes with the same people. And I feel like in the past it was more like, okay, 2 or 3 minutes, and then we pop over to this conversation, and we pop over to this conversation. So I feel like weirdly sad for the people who don't get featured at all. But anyway, that was just my little conversation up front before we can actually dive into.
I mean, because like I'm always so excited to see if I recognize people. Like, I knew, like, from season 3, went to college with Nancy. So it was really cool to get to see her go through the whole show. Right. And then this season I was like, oh, I don't recognize anybody. But then lo and behold, I got a random text from one of my friends like, hey, I know this guy. He's going to be on this season. And we saw maybe 10 seconds of him. And he was one of the background Love is Blind contestants that we didn't see a single date for. So,
but is it kind of the best case scenario to be, if you're really looking for love, to be someone who finds love but then just doesn't get featured on the show?
Right. Yeah.
I guess you get to maybe come back for the After the Altars as part of the pod squad. If you like, I bet we would see Renee as a pod squad member,
Yeah, they're definitely making this pod squad thing happen. Like, and I feel like the fact that we do have so many people, like we saw in the previews, that we do get to see Uche and Aaliyah again. I think they're really going to try to, some of these people that we were introduced to that didn't get engaged, we're definitely seeing again.
Especially because I don't think the show's format could, I mean, they would have to have a really quick back half if we only follow 3 couples. Like, we follow usually 5 or 6. So
exactly. So maybe you're right. Maybe episode 5, it kicks it off with, getting to know another couple to add to the mix, but we still do have to have the reveal for Lydia and Milton.
Oh, yes. Well, no, wait. Do we? Because they didn't get engaged, did they? Or did they?
Yeah, they did.
I was a little loopy while watching this. It was a weird week. So hold on. Uche and Ali, I thought there was another. Did I make up? Was there not a scene where Milton like walked away and said that he wasn't ready?
No, we just said I needed some time. Well, look, let's get to it. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I need to go back, rewatch that last like 10 minutes again. I
Right.
misinterpreted that somehow.
Wait, so do you think Uche and Aaliyah got engaged?
No, I
Okay.
just felt like we had 2 whole couples who like broke up at the end. Okay, never mind.
Yeah,
We'll
no, the 3 that got engaged were Taylor and JP, Izzy and Stacey, and Lydia and Milton.
Oh, sorry. Yes. Johnny and Chris. That's the one.
Yes.
Okay, we're good. I'm back in it. I forgot about Lydia and Milton. You're right, but we didn't see their reveal. That's why I forgot. I'm like, there's only been 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and get Taylor and JP out of the way, because we kind of like we started their story in the first drop. It was like, oh, they're very just like normal couple, probably not going to bring a lot of drama. They continued that in this drop, where we got to see them go even deeper into their conversation and then drop the I love you. So we're like, okay, they're getting there.
Yeah.
So JP shares, his what it was like for him growing up, and his mom, and what it was like with his sisters, and his dealing with his mom's anger. And I was like, wow, you are really opening up, which I get you have to do before a proposal. But it was just like, I felt like we were intruding on a moment hearing this.
Yeah, I agree with that. I feel like we've seen different levels of people open up. And this is something, if you didn't listen to our premiere episode, definitely go back and listen to that, because I talked a little bit about how, who was it? Was it Chris? Somebody else was opening up a lot.
Chris,
and there's like different levels, because we're going to see Milton open up in this drop, and it's a little different. There's a very clear line sometimes with like what life experience you've had, and that that's not bad if you don't have any deep trauma in your life. I feel like sometimes people are like, why can't we get deep? Why can't we open up? It's like, well, I'm sorry, I don't have anything to pull from. But I think it's more about like opening up doesn't mean telling necessarily like a very deep, dark story.
Mm-hmm.
But when people have those and they open up, I'm a little bit like, oh, can we like fast forward through this, just because I feel like this is a private moment that we're watching here.
I know, because it's like, I totally get it. Like, he wants her to understand like who he is today, understand the dynamics in his family and why it is the way it is today. And like, so that's definitely important for her to know. It's just like on television, but I know that's what these people sign up for. And so it's just like, oh, those moments. I mean, because there are always, I think the level of opening up is, it always seems like it has to be like basically just something you wouldn't tell just an everyday person. You don't go around just telling these stories all the time. For some people, those are way deeper. For others, it's just like, okay, I bite my nails at night. Something just really random. But with him sharing this with her, I was like, okay, he is really into Taylor. There's no other options for him. There's no other options for her. And so naturally, we do get to see them get engaged. He proposes, and it's very touching. He's like, he cries, and he's getting choked up, and we get lots of sugars and sugar butts, and they're happy.
Yep, they're happy. That I think we predicted in the first drop, like, okay, this is going to be our steady, easy edit, no drama in the pods couple. And yep, that's what we got so far.
Right. And I was optimistic, and we got their reveal. They see each other. It's great. They're smiling, but then it was kind of awkward. And I was like, why is it so awkward? It just seemed like obviously you don't want to, it takes a while to get to a point with like your significant other to just be comfortable in silence. And obviously in this moment, it's not the time for silence. Like, you should be talking about everything that you were seeing about each other, where he was just responding. He was only responding to her. He did not, when they sat down, because I watched it twice at this point, because my mom and brother hadn't seen it, so I watched it again. When they sit down, he literally does not initiate anything. He's only responding to her. So then she's having to come up with these things to say, But then the biggest, just like, uh-oh, was her saying in her confessional, normally I wouldn't have gone for him because he has a gap, but usually you shouldn't, turn people down because of their teeth. And you know what? Looks don't matter even. They don't matter to me anymore. It's like, uh-oh.
I personally didn't even notice the gap until she said anything about it. So, like, come on.
Yeah, it was a very small gap.
When I was watching that the quiet moments in their meeting, I was thinking to myself, okay, if you were in this scenario, what you should do is plan some things you're going to say and plan some things you're going to talk about, because it's going to be awkward meeting them. Like, even if you're both very attracted to each other, or you're happy, the transition from going to, like, I mean, just think about it. The people that I don't know if you ever had this, but like, I had some friends growing up where it was really easy for me to text them, like guys I had crushes on or whatever. But then, like, when we were in person at school, we like wouldn't talk. It was like,
Yeah.
And I feel like that can be a problem when you have that sort of like non face-to-face relationship. Like, even, I mean, I guess what they're doing here is a little more akin to talking on the phone than texting. But yeah, I definitely feel like when you're back there in that room, like getting ready to come out, go ahead and think of a couple topics that you want to say. And ideally, both people will have a little bit of that. Maybe the way
He's
that
so
he deals with like
stunned.
awkward silence is just to like sit there and smile. And clearly her way was like, oh no, I need him to talk. I need to say something. I need to fill the silence.
Yeah. Because when they're in the pods, they're still in that get to know you type questions. Like, even though they progress and they get deeper, they're still like, okay, so tell me something you've never told someone before. Tell me your biggest trauma. When they meet in person, they're not going to sit down and say, okay, so tell me a time, those are easier to come up with than, the type of conversation when we just start hanging out together. There has to be like a transition when you're just hanging out, because now you've covered the bases. And you're like, okay, now we're just going to naturally get to know each other without having to like prompt those questions. And so that does mean that it could be awkward, but you think there is plenty to talk about. You've never seen this person, so I could talk all the things about what I'm seeing about you, or what I'm thinking you see about me, or your clothes, or there's so many in front of your faces observations. But maybe he was just stunned by her beauty that he couldn't come up with anything else.
You know what's so interesting about all this is, so I'm reading his bio again. First off, they have him listed as Jared. I guess he didn't say that he was going to go by JP.
Yeah. Maybe he said JP because there was another Jared.
They're right. Yeah, there's two Jareds, so maybe that's why. But he said that like his main problem in the past has been getting in depth with the relationships and opening up. And that's interesting because we did see him open up here. So maybe that was something he really prioritized, of like, wow, I feel like I can't normally get to this place, so let's see if I can here.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe. So I'm very interested to see where it goes with them, if they are going to be that, like, the stable couple, because we did see in the previews, like, the one of the arguments they had was her saying, well, that you didn't know what I look like. He's like, but now I do. It was like, well, that they could be talking about anything. You know how they edit these. So,
oh yeah, I feel like there's at least one in the past where they kept editing like some big moment, and then it was like them doing an impression of another couple or something.
Yeah,
it's like you just never know.
Yeah. So we'll see. At this point, it does seem like they really like each other, but she has a little bit of hesitations in the attraction department. Because I will say, he probably, if you close your eyes, which I've always wanted to do this experiment, but I can't because we podcast about it.
I thought of that like before we started also, of like, man, you know what would be an interesting twist on this show is, at least for the first couple episodes when they're in the pods, don't show us the people. Like, either it's just an auditory show, which would, it would get confusing. It would get complicated because you would just they would have to keep saying their names. Or just like somehow like blur them out, like blur the people or something like that. And then so you could try to guess what you think they look like too. I don't know. I think that'd be interesting.
Right, like, I think it would be like, maybe they do that with, like, one couple or maybe not just one, but just figure out a way to do it to surprise the audience. Like, you
Yeah.
could do it, like, where he's talking, you show his pants. Like, there are many artistic ways. They actually did that on Married at First Sight last season. One of the girls who, she got or she got married. Her and her husband didn't work out, so after decision day, on decision day, they decided to break up. But then she started dating another guy, and she didn't want to show that guy on the show. And so they filmed a whole scene of them going on a date, but they never showed his face because she didn't want him to be on camera. She was like, I want to take this seriously with him. I don't want people to know who he is yet. And so
Wow.
they did a whole scene without ever showing us his face. So it's possible.
See that? Yeah, that would be interesting. I don't
Yeah.
know. Netflix, think about it. Try something new, maybe for season
Yeah.
6.
Consider it, please. Yeah. So now we get into a weird web of things. So the first I guess topic we'll tackle is mainly Johnny and Chris. But as we saw, Johnny is contemplating between Izzy and Chris. And contemplating is like the understatement of the century. Um okay. First, before we even dive into any of the nitty gritty, how do you feel about Johnny?
I like Johnny. So this is what was most interesting to me is I feel like in past seasons, and we don't know the timeline in here, but in the past seasons, it feels like people will refrain from making a decision for a long time. Like it seems like it's much closer to the end where we've even had people who will propose, like get proposed to multiple times and wait till that point to pick. So I was with Johnny, like I couldn't tell, is this day 7 or 8 that she's telling Chris that she's not into him, or is this, or that he's not, that she has a stronger connection with someone else? Or is this day 4? Like that's the timeline is confusing for me because if it's day 4, I would be like, Johnny, just like keep it up with him for a little while longer. But it must have been later. I like Johnny. I don't feel like she is nearly as much of a, she says, walking red flag as they're trying to portray her as or something. Like I think she's fine. I do feel like in her conversations with the women, she does come across a little bit like I don't know, it's not exactly like a pick me girl, but like kind of like a little bit like, oh, like I know about these people enough to know that like Izzy and Stacey wouldn't be good together. Like they're gonna break up in, in a month and stuff. And I'm just kind of like, it's a little bit immature, I feel like. I don't know. What do you
Oh,
think about her?
yeah, I could see that being the right word to describe it. I was gonna say she's very much so. I'm going to say what I feel needs to be said in this moment to get the outcome that I want, no matter if it is conflicting to other things I say. Because,
Yeah.
like Exhibit A, hey, I'm going to drop Chris for Izzy to show Izzy I'm all about Izzy. But then when Izzy doesn't pick me, I'll say that Izzy wasn't even ready for marriage anyway. Izzy just signed a lease. Izzy
Yeah.
said
A little
all these
revisionist.
things. And I'm like, wait a second, Johnny. That is a little bit different than what you just said.
Especially because you have to think of like, if you're even thinking that there might be a chance, even if Izzy does get engaged to someone else, that like months from now you could reconnect with Izzy. Do you want to be saying this stuff now? Like I know it's hard when you've been, dumped, but and that's why the timeline's confusing to me, or why I would like clarity on the timeline, because my thought would be, if you like Chris enough where you're okay with continuing pursuing something with him, maybe ask Izzy first if you like how he's feeling and get a gauge from that. But at first, when she dropped things with Chris, I was actually sort of happy about it because I was like, oh, she's being, if she knows that she's not feeling it with him, then yeah, cut it off. but we know this show, and we know that, like, if things don't work out with her and Izzy, she's gonna come back to Chris. And that was when I was like, but like maybe you shouldn't have broken up with him in the first place.
Yeah, it was so it was really, it was odd because because of your timeline point, because we did see the date where they had like a quote unquote like spa night, and he tells her he's in love with her and he could see himself marrying her. And her response is, I could see a future with you. Not, oh, I'm getting there, or she didn't mention love at all. And so I was like, ooh, that's not a good sign. But then the next time she sees him and breaks up with him, like, because she has a stronger emotional connection elsewhere, it's like he was so heartbroken and she was so surprised by it. Like, why was she? I'm like, girl, he told you he loved you. Like, he was in love with you. Why are you so shocked that he was heartbroken that y'all broke up?
This is a classic, like, first off, pet peeve on these dating shows. The phrase that people use a lot, which she used, and you just said, I could see a future with you. People say that like it means I want to have a future with you. Yeah, I could see a future with a lot of people. I could see a future. But I mean, when you go on dates, that's what you're supposed to do, is picture your future with them. Yeah, I could see my future with this person. It would be crap, but I could see my future with them. Yeah. You know, like, saying that isn't the like, I don't know. It's not the thing that you're trying to get across. It's like this weird cop out that people say where, oh, this is a thing that sounds like it means something, but it really doesn't. It's really, it's not necessarily positive. So just watch out for that. If you hear someone say that,
like, what do you really mean?
Yeah. I think one of my hardest things about this is, first off, if you listen to our preview episode or our premiere episode, I said that I am allowed to change my mind about things. Nope, and yes, that has happened. Nope, I'm allowed to change my mind about things. And that has happened with a couple people. But as of this point, watching this drop of episodes, I mean, I really like JP, but like Chris, based on the way he was talking in the pods, I feel like I would have gotten along with Chris. Like, I feel like that he's the kind of person who I, just based on they were sort of jokey, but he was very sincere. And like, that's the kind of people that I always feel like, oh, I at least want to like someone like that.
He seems like a sweet guy.
Yeah, he seems sweet. Like,
and I guess Johnny wanted a challenge because that's what she went for.
And I understand like the idea of like, oh my gosh, I'm getting butterflies around this person. That means something. Yes, it means you're infatuated with them. Yeah. It does not necessarily mean that you would have like the best, most successful future, but it's what she was gravitating towards. So, hey.
Exactly. And the fact that Izzy had another option and she knew exactly that he had Stacy as another option, it could have been like, she's like, okay, if I put in my all and I win, then that I'm going after a desirable guy, where she could have that view that, okay, no one else is after Chris. Why is that? Why am I the only one going after Chris? Rather than seeing it as, no, Chris has chosen to go pursue me and only me. So that's a good thing, right? Like, he is interested, and if I'm interested, then it's a mutual thing. And I think it was a matter of her thinking like, oh, someone else is going after Izzy. So that makes sense. Like, I'm going after somebody else that other people think is a catch, which is that was my thought on what she could have been thinking in the back of her mind. Maybe she didn't, but that her actions seemed that way. But let's see, we'll get Mary back here in a second. So Johnny did go on a couple of dates with Johnny went on a couple of dates with Izzy. And so okay, Mary's power went out. So we'll just pause. All right, so we're back.
If you're not watching the video, you really should be, because I am now coming to you live from a parking lot at a well-known coffee chain because the power in my house went out. Thank you, hurricane season. There's a tropical storm happening right now, so we'll see how long the power's on that I'm using here.
Yes. Yeah, we have to make it to the big drama. So we left.
This right here was the little drama before we get into the big
right, exactly. This was our preparation. Yeah. So we were on Johnny and Chris, and so Johnny went on a couple dates with Izzy, and one where she I think kind of was where he started to get all in his head was where she shared like she was with an ex who had an addiction, and he felt like he was learning a lot about her that he felt that he already should know.
Which, I mean, she's telling him what
right, like this is the moment.
And this is again with the whole timeline. Like, was this day 9 that she told him this? Was this like, because in most of Izzy's conversations, it seemed like he was leaning towards Johnny up until this point. And I also, I didn't feel like, compared to anything, like obviously, I don't think that things from people's past should be particularly held against them. But like, it's not even like Johnny was saying that she had an addiction. It seemed more like that he was worried that when she said that she had only been in love with this one person and not even with her husband at the time, and that she rebounded with her husband. I feel like that was more so than like any content of the tragic story that she was telling him about her first love.
Yeah, I think that was definitely it. Was that the fact that she did get married to someone she wasn't in love with. And she explained, like, my only love was this guy that I dated, and then he ended up passing away, and passed away from a drug overdose. But and it all happened 7 years ago.
Right.
You know who we were 7 years ago? Early 20s, like completely different people.
Yes. Yeah,
so
completely different.
I do see it as like I understand his reaction and just the story, right? But then like if you think of the timeline, it's like, okay, just as long as this person has understands that, like, okay, you got married not for love, just if you're planning on not doing that again, then we're good.
Well, and I even felt like her whole point with it was saying, I went through this experience, and so I now know that I'm holding out for the person I want to be in love with, and that I'm more sure of. Like, I almost feel like there was a completely different interpretation to it than what he seemed to take, which was, oh my gosh, what if she's just unsure again and rebounding with me or something?
Yeah.
Then again, is there any part of it that maybe he just felt like, oh, this is too deep, it seems so much easier and surface level with Stacey?
Right. Exactly. He's like, whoa. This is, especially when you're directly comparing.
Right.
Like, had he not had Stacey, he could have taken this like, okay, let me digest this and see, you know, how I want to move forward with it. But he's like, in comparison, I'm having a lot of fun with Stacey.
And we have a guy like this, it seems like almost every season. You know, we got your Barnett, your Shane, your whoever, who seem like they are two completely different people depending on who they're dating. Like there's always the girl who makes them seem more mature and serious and whatever, and then the girl who they just seem sort of lighthearted and fun with.
Yeah.
And I think Shane was the only one who chose the opposite direction.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's not to diminish the relationships that choose the fun, lighthearted person. There's a lot to be said for that. I think that is great. I just think it's very interesting because, like, Asia, have you ever dated someone where they start dating someone else after you or whatever, and you're like, wow, I feel like I didn't even know them at all because I'm so different than that new person they started dating, and so. Yeah, I feel like it's sort of that same category.
Yeah, and I feel like that happens so often. I've seen it with friends. I'm like, this new person that he's dating, I have no idea. Like the girl is so different from you.
Yeah.
It definitely does seem that way. And they end this conversation with him. They're just calling it a night because he just needs to process everything. And I was like, oh, it's a little scary to end the conversation that way.
Yeah.
Not especially her not knowing how he feels. She has, at this point, has told him she's broken it off with Chris. So it's like, this could have been a very clear sign for her that, look, girl, this is not about to work out with him.
And I feel like in this show, unless you're in a situation like JP and Taylor, where it seems like pretty quickly you narrow it down to where it's like, all right, you're my only person I'm considering. And so we're just going to see whether or not we can get to the point of wanting to get engaged by the end of this. With the people who are choosing between multiple people, it feels like sometimes when someone says, hey, just so you know, you're my number one person, or just so you know, I've broken enough with the other person, I think that can kind of almost make someone like get cold feet and get scared and be like, oh, whoa, they're really serious about me. If I don't feel that serious about them, like, I feel like I need to break it off, which is basically what she did with Chris, you know?
But it's obvious, and it's also what he did with her.
Right.
Like, to break it off with her. So Stacey knew that she didn't have anybody else to worry about.
And that's the thing, like, not Taylor, what's her name? Oh my gosh.
Stacey? Johnny?
No, Johnny. Okay. Johnny, she kept saying that Stacey was Izzy's Chris. And it's like, no, girl, you are. You're like, you're the Chris.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, enough with the Chris slander. I like Chris.
Yeah, exactly. So they also had that the earlier date where they talked, where he shared how he grew up as a Jehovah's Witness, and so she was understanding more about that, and just, you know, like, the questions that she was asking, I was like, she doesn't know anything about Jehovah's Witnesses. I feel like we had like a Jehovah's Witness like center in my hometown, and that prompted me to like, what do Jehovah's Witnesses believe? And then I had one kid that, like, I grew up in school with, who was a Jehovah's Witness.
Oh.
He can do all the birthday parties with us.
I didn't know about the holiday thing, actually. Like, I knew a little bit about, I think a Jehovah's Witness like came to our door once. And like talked to my mom for a while, but I don't know. Anyway, yeah. That was about
it. So then this last date with Johnny and Izzy was Izzy explaining the differences. Like, hey, I fell for you pretty quick, but I have Stacey, who is very fun, and I feel like an engagement at this point just has to make sense. And Johnny is the one that has to say, are you ending things with me? And he's like, yes.
Yeah. Also, that was a little bit of word salad from Izzy. I feel like he was like, I fell for you so quick, and it felt like we got so deep. And then with Stacey, now I'm getting deep with her, and I feel like I don't know you at all. And it was like, yeah. What? Like, I thought you right. What are you talking about?
Yeah, because I feel like the story she told in any, I mean, obviously, in the normal world, you're not getting engaged in 10 days, right? But even with the story that she told him, that may not even be something you share on like a 7th or 8th date with somebody in the real world. Like, it's something like,
right.
I feel safe with you to tell you this like trauma from my past, which the timing felt fine. It was still in the pods. It wasn't like they got engaged and it was the day before the wedding. And she's like, oh, by the way, let me explain what happened.
Which is why I feel like the key part there was actually he's the only person I've loved, and I rebounded with my husband. Like, I think that is the part that I completely understand why he was like, ooh, about.
Yeah.
Even though she had told him early on that she'd been married before and he had been engaged before.
Yeah, exactly. He just didn't know the context.
Right.
So he breaks up with her for Stacey, and now Johnny's heartbroken. She's like, I gotta go. And then they're like, well, don't you want to talk to Chris? You really liked Chris. She's like, yeah, but like, I've talked so bad about our relationship at this point. But she's like, hey, why not? Basically.
I did appreciate the fact that to Chris, she seemed, at least in this initial conversation, like, she was very open and honest. Like, here's the situation. I picked Izzy. Izzy ended things with me. So I kind of wanted to let you know, like, where I'm at with that. And I do feel like it's fine. You know, I think it's fine for Chris to say, okay, well, I'd consider, you know, continuing to try something with you. And I think it would be fine for him to say, nope, I can't feel like I was second best or whatever. But we just saw Bliss and Zach last season. Like, sometimes that works out. Sometimes people don't know when it comes to a first and second pick who they actually are into or who is actually right for them.
I feel like Bliss and Zach are the exception. I really do. Like I would not
You've never had someone who like you dated someone and then you thought about like a friend or someone that you never dated, be like, man, I probably should have dated them. Like they would have been better for me. You never, okay.
Well, me personally, there are probably a lot of people like, what do you call it? The missed connections type of thing.
Yeah. Like ships in the night, like something like that. Like
it's never the right time.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and that's the thing is though, in this scenario, like, yeah, I wouldn't want to be somebody's second pick, and that would bug me.
Exactly. Especially knowing you were the second pick. It's one thing to not know, but she literally is looking at the person that she is the second pick to.
But I did do that once. Like I was dating someone in high school who I remembered that I told them at one point, like, hey, I heard a rumor that you're about to get back with your ex-girlfriend. We weren't dating at the time. We weren't dating. And I was like, I'd rather you date me instead. And they were like,
did it work?
No. Well, no, we dated many years later. But at that time, he was like, no. And so it did go in the back of my mind for a while. I was like, well, I was their second pick. But like, it's high school. You just date them.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's fine. I've read the comments. You don't need to hear my life story. It's okay.
So the thing, so yes, Izzy I was about to call her Nicole. Johnny was like honest to an extent, but she said, I usually go, like, she was like, you're the safe pick. I usually go for the person who is not the safe pick. But when she told Izzy this, she said, I always go for the safe pick. I want to go for the pick that's not the safest. So then when Chris and Izzy compared notes, it was like, girl, why'd you tell them two different stories?
Yeah, I was trying to work out in my head of whether or not that was the guys misinterpreting what she said, or if she really did tell them both the same thing.
She did. No, she really did say the opposite. I watched it twice.
So make sure. Okay, hold on. So she was saying that Chris was the safe pick and Izzy wasn't.
Yes.
And she's okay. So the guys misinterpreted it.
No.
Oh, no. Okay.
They had the right. They know that she's saying that Chris is the safe pick. The issue is she said she's always gone for the safe pick. She told that to Izzy. She told Chris, I always go for the one, like the guys like Izzy that are harder to get or whatever. She's like, I never go for the safe option.
Interesting.
And so now like, wait, why do we know? Why? It's because what she's saying to the guy at the moment is the version of it that she thinks that they would want to hear.
She does look like a Nicole. I think
right? It's just like, wait. It's like, why did Nicole just come so naturally? But I was so with her last day with Chris, I'm so proud of him for choosing himself, because it could have been so easy to be like, okay, she came back. Yeah, it wasn't ideal, but let's move forward. But he said, I have to be selfish. You didn't choose me a second ago. And she told him to his face that he wasn't as exciting. Well, through the wall.
Which is true, but like I don't think that's like a bad thing to not be as exciting. I think maybe she should have used a different word. I don't know. But like so she was honest with him in that way.
That piece, yeah.
Like I feel like other people who just really want to be on the show would have done more to make him feel like, oh my gosh, I was wrong. I was going for the risky choice, but after he broke it off with me, I realized what a good thing I had, and I started thinking about all the qualities you have that I'm really looking for, like stuff like that.
Yeah.
And she she sort of half measured that, because she told him he wasn't as exciting, but then she was like, I want to be with you. I just don't want to lose you. And it's like, well, do you or do you not want to lose the show? Or you're grasping at straws here a little.
Right. Like, do you want to be with me so you can meet Izzy? Like, the show has happened.
Which should be in your mind.
Literally.
Shout out season 1.
Exactly. Like, no, I don't want to just be your train ride to meet the guy that you wish would have picked you. So I'm glad he was able to do this without being, because she's still going to get to meet Izzy. She's part of the Pod Squad. So
yeah, the show will make it happen. Trust me.
Yeah, exactly. Like there was too much drama with this.
The show is probably desperately being like, oh my gosh, no, we only have 2 engagements so far.
Yeah. They're like, Chris, are you sure?
Sure.
It's just an engagement, Chris. Everybody gets engaged all the time.
Just talk to Izzy. He's done it before. It's fine.
Right. So on the other side of this, we have Izzy and Stacy. And so the words you say sometimes put me in a tizzy. So much so I need a cocktail filled with some fizzy. I'd rather stay in a pod with you than take a whizzy. Even though you're busy, you still make me dizzy. I could be your Izzy Mizzy. Bars.
Look, we got 2 poems in this drop. And I would just like to say that poems don't need to rhyme, first off. I don't know. Like, this is the kind of thing that I would do.
I wish we could have gotten to see his reaction. We only got to see her say it to Miriam.
Probably because she didn't actually say it to him.
You don't think so?
I don't know. Maybe she wrote it and, like, gave it to him. I don't know.
Yeah. I feel like he probably just laughed and they're like, we can't play that twice.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Once we started hearing the whole thing. See, they could have done, like, the nice transition where she, like, starts saying it to the friend and then they just, like, cut right in the middle of the stanza and go to the other person. Yeah. Oh, well.
So
what do you think of Stacy, big picture?
Big picture, Stacy and Izzy remind me of a couple I know in real life, not in fake life. And so she really reminds me of someone I know and her husband. So for me, they make sense. Like for Izzy to pick Stacy, I could see it working. Like even though they didn't get as deep as he did with Johnny, I feel like Izzy is the type of guy that is okay with that. Like, yeah, he may need to be vulnerable, which I feel like he has been with her, or maybe they didn't show it, but I feel like there's no way he hasn't shared something vulnerable with her at this point. But it doesn't come as easy to her. But I feel like he wants that balance where it is more fun, where she's not as similar to him. And so with Stacy, girl, there has to be a balance. Like you have to be able to have those like we're not just a shell of people that are just out here having a good time left and right, never have to get deep. Because then that just makes me think she'll be avoidant in like arguments and confrontations. But I feel like for Izzy, that's the balance he needs.
Yeah.
With the things he's gone through up to this point.
It was giving Shayna a little bit. It was giving Yoga Pants. I don't know. I think I just need to see more from Stacy because she seems fun. She seems lighthearted. I like that, but I do wonder, like, what's your story? And it doesn't have to be like deep trauma. Like getting deep could just be talking about things you care about. It doesn't need to be. It doesn't need to be more than that. And so I think some people say, like, I have a hard time opening up or I have a hard time getting deep. Like, I get that. It can be hard to want to be vulnerable, but being vulnerable doesn't mean that you need to, like, talk about your deepest thoughts and fears. It just means that you need to say, like, wow, you know, Asia, I had a hard day at work today. And here are some of the things that are stressing me out. You know, it's stressful out here in the pods when I'm dating you and I know that you're dating Johnny and, you know, this is kind of how I'm feeling about that. Like you could get into that and that could be opening up without it needing to be like, okay, let me think of something from my past.
Right. Exactly. Just anything about your own feelings. But it's like her version of opening up her feelings is telling him that he makes her lungs hurt. Like her lungs and heart are fighting. They can't keep up with how she feels about him.
What does that even mean? That's nothing.
I feel like he gives you anxiety. Like that's what that sounds like.
I don't know.
Like I'm getting a little, it's not just like, it's different than butterflies. Like when you start getting like short of breath.
Like, girl, go to the doctor. Get that checked out.
Is he making you like, okay, nervous, but that's like a giddy butterflies.
Yeah.
Not, I can't breathe when I'm sitting here talking to you about a future. But
oh my gosh. It's Star Wars, you know, like when I'm with you, I'm in agony.
Yeah. But they do have in common that they both of their biggest insecurities are abandonment, and like she does cry. So it was like there was a moment of vulnerability here, and she feels like she has a lot to offer him. And then when he breaks up with Johnny, he comes in, he's so happy. He's like, this is the most clear-headed I've ever been, and I'm just so happy to hear and see you, because for him it's lighthearted and it's fun, and he doesn't have to worry about, are we going to have a serious conversation? Is there potential for conflict here? So I'm a little bit on the fence with them. We do get to see his proposal, and it was sweet.
Yeah, it was sweet. Yeah. It was sweet. The more I think about it, maybe I'm coming around the opposite way. Maybe I feel like, it would be really nice, just a nice, fun, non-stressful relationship.
Right.
I get it. All right.
Yeah. And you see their reveal. They're smiling from ear to ear. He can't stop shaking. He does do the thing where he proposes again, which was really sweet. And he said she smelled amazing, which I feel like is a very for me, smell is so big.
Oh, they can make or break. Oh yeah.
Yes. It's like, if you smell great, I like my boyfriend always smells great. So that is just like, I love a good smell. And so for him to say like, oh, you smell amazing, they don't know what each other smells like.
Yeah.
So it's just like, oh wow, this is great. It's more than just what the eye. You got to work every sense,
So these are some things to remember when you're standing behind that door. Think of a couple of conversation topics in case it gets awkward and silent. Make sure you spritz up a little bit.
Right. Because she says she washed her hair for him. Okay. Not just for yourself. Got it. And she says, don't touch my legs. I didn't shave. We're getting a lot of personal hygiene very quickly with her. It'll be very interesting to see how it goes with them. Like, they're either going to be great and it's going to be amazing, or there's going to be like their first argument. They're just going to crash and burn because they've never encountered something like that.
Do you think there is any chance that Izzy decides to pivot and pursue things with someone else, or no?
No. I don't think so. We did see, though, in the previews, not only was he like having conversations with Johnny, he was also having conversations with Lydia.
Yes, because that's
which I was like, I forgot they even dated.
Oh, lest we forget, Lydia told him that he was her number one back in like episode 1.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know what day it was in the pods. Maybe it was day 2. I don't know.
I know. That would be so helpful. Like, I don't care if you have to jump around. I don't care if you have to tell us it's day 10 for Taylor and JP while we're jumping back to day 2 for someone else. Just give us the day, because that it just helps, like, contextually. Like, we can understand and we can make sense of this. Because like when I watched it the second time with my mom and my brother, my mom was like, they're not in love. She's like, it's too quick.
It's like, well, yeah,
but that's every season.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I mean, 10 days is quick regardless.
Yeah, exactly. So okay. Uche and Aaliyah. We'll unpack them first. We know this is what we're trying to get to. This is the reason that I was so excited in the premiere for everyone to continue watching.
Okay. At the time we recorded the first podcast, I had only watched the first episode. Just want to recap that. I might have said some very positive things about Uche that I'm not necessarily going to take all of them back, but I will say that I think the tone I picked up the first time that I watched it was him just being very like sort of monotone, thinking things through, trying to figure it out. Mm-hmm. Kind of in the way that Izzy was in this episode. Mm-hmm. But this time, there were definitely some words that came out of his mouth that I'm like, whoa, if someone ever said that to me, red flag, red flag, red flag. And it's a red flag in terms of remember, not all toxic relationships are toxic 100% of the time. And it's those good times that make you not realize the bad ones. But like, at one point, Aaliyah's going to tell him basically, you know, you said this, which is a thing he said. And his response wasn't, oh, well, I didn't mean it that way. His response was, did I say those words? And she was like, yes.
Yes.
And I'm like, whether, even if she was wrong and she had misinterpreted him, that should not be the way that you respond to that, because you're automatically coming at it with confrontation. And I see the condescension that you were talking about the first time around. And I also, more than that, I see, oh, if you have a big argument with him ever in the future, it's not going to be a two people who love each other coming together trying to find out the solution. It's going to be, it seems like he needs to win and hope that you agree with that. Like that's the impression I got, or I would say that's the fear. That's the way that this little red flag could problem to.
And the problem with Uche is he is not an anomaly. He is the reason that dating in Houston is horrendous. It's so difficult.
Have you met people like this?
Too many to count.
Oh, gosh.
Like, I've been on a date with an Uche. Like, his behavior is so not the norm, which is so unfortunate. It's just like these tactics of, I'm the prize that you need to win. And it's totally okay to have confidence. It's totally okay to think so highly of yourself. But when you are in a relationship, it's a partnership. It's not, oh, you need to prove yourself to me because I know I'm it. And I know that I am, like, that mentality is running rampant. It's in the water or something in Houston.
There are other people on reality shows right now who act very similarly. Like,
exactly.
There is this it's one of the most frustrating types of personality types to deal with, because you can't even like sit them down and say, hey, don't you see that this is a little, like, let's rewatch the tape. Can you see this from my side? No, it's people who can't even understand how other people would view them as being disrespectful or hurtful or wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't view it that way.
There's no reasoning.
Yeah.
And so it's just like Uche needs somebody who is just someone who is not willing to confront him about anything. Someone who is just like easygoing in terms of like avoids conflict, avoids speaking up. Like, that's the type of personality that Uche would easily get along with, easily work with in a relationship. Anything else is going to be work for Uche. And so with them, we do see because we ended that last episode off of her sharing the cheating, right? And so in this episode, starting off episode 2 through 4, she was saying like, look, I felt like you were condemning me. I felt judged. And he's basically just saying like, did I say any of those things? She's telling you how she felt with what you did say. And even the thing you did say, yes, you did say, even you tried to deny it. So that was so frustrating.
Well, if I said that, right, then you probably misinterpreted what I was trying to say.
Yeah, I didn't mean it that way.
I didn't mean it that way. But it's so hard, because the one thing I'll give Uche is this. Even when he says positive things, he has the same tone. So sometimes it's like his a little
tone
hard.
Never changes.
It's a little hard to catch, because I'm like, oh, whoa, if someone was speaking to me in that tone, I would think that this is like, I would get that condescending vibe from it. But even when he's saying, oh my gosh, I really like you, he says it in that same way somehow. So I'm like, wait a second, is this just how he talks?
Right. Like, he's like, you can't read me if I say everything the same way.
His tone is gaslighting me.
Yeah, exactly. And so he says, like, he explains, he does apologize. He does explain he's had issues with cheating in the past. And he does finally tell her, because when he told her before she had walked out of the room, that he thinks it's a positive thing that she shared it, because she didn't have to tell him, but she told him with the risk of losing him. And so he thinks that's a good thing. And he does tell her he's falling for her. And so it seems like they are going to be like, this was their pitfall and they're on their way back up. They had a date where they talked about weird things, where she liked honey and Splenda packets. And so I was like, okay, cool. He didn't have any weird things besides he said he just likes things very particular. So I was like, okay.
Not me. I love a nice crooked picture frame.
Exactly.
No, look, I completely understand. Like that, yeah, that does bug me as well. But like, eating honey is not that weird.
Yeah. Do you have any, like, if you were put in this position, what is like the one weird thing you would say?
Oh, I've got so many, but like I would say the first one, the one I normally go to, is like, I have to wash my feet before bed. Like, I cannot get in the bed. It used to be so much worse when I was a kid. Like, I would wash my feet in the bathroom and then like walk on my knees back to my room so they didn't like touch the floor. Yeah. And like, oh my gosh, I was unbearable to like camp with or go to the beach where like even when you wash your feet, you could touch the floor. Everything is sandy. Like, oh
yeah.
Anyway, I've gotten a little bit better, mostly because I'll wash my feet and immediately put socks on and then go. Yeah. But like, I teach constantly. What about you, Asia?
Gotcha.
What's your thing?
I could say I agree with that. I'm like, I don't get in my bed if I'm not clean. Oh yeah. So like if I've gone out into the world, yes. I'm not getting in my bed without like taking a shower.
But I feel like we bonded over this. I'm like, yes. Even just like stepping outside, it's like I didn't do anything. I haven't gotten like, dirty theoretically, but like
it's the outside air.
The air. It's gotten on me.
Yeah, my go-to would be, I love the smell of like ice. So like when you open up a freezer, whoa, and you smell like the aroma of like the ice cubes and the frozen, yeah. It smells really good.
That's so weird because I feel like most people hate that smell. Like
really?
I dislike it. Like I mean, maybe there's a different ice smell you have, but like when I open up the freezer, I'm like, oh, this smells like freezer burn. Like I don't like you know what I'm talking about? Like when you open ice cream and it's got that little film and you're like, ugh.
Do you like to like eat ice?
Yeah, I do eat ice though.
Okay.
See, especially when you get that ice that's like really easy to crunch, you know, like the little pellets. Yeah.
Yes. So I'm like, there are plenty of weird things out here. Okay, Uche. You could have come up with anything.
Runners eat honey like on the reg. Like this is not this is not weird. Probably singers do. Like, come on.
Yeah. I literally just saw a fact yesterday that was like dogs should eat a teaspoon of honey, and this is why it helps with allergies and stuff. I was like,
Have you tried giving them honey?
I haven't, but anytime I put honey in my tea, they're like at my feet. Like, Mom, please. I'm like, no. And it happens every day. I'm like, I make tea every day. And every time I pull out the honey, they're all about it. So let's see. Okay. So we get through that. To it? Yeah. So we get to the point where he's left her a journal. He wrote her a poem. I did not write down that poem. It was an actual poem.
Yeah, but it's still rhymed.
Yeah. He tells her, I have not been honest with you. I have dated day one. I walked in the pods and I have dated a girl who was here, and it is Lydia. Miss Lydia, who has been all up in Aaliyah's face, has befriended her most intensely of everyone here. They hold hands, they hug. When she's talking to her, she's like, look her in the face. When she talks to her about Uche, Lydia is saying, he's smarter than that. He's smarter than that. And I was just like, how are you so sure? Unless you're also dating him. So Rob Cesternino was right in the premiere when he was like, what if Uche has next?
This makes so much more sense now. At the time when we watched the premiere, before I knew about this, I thought that Lydia was just like, because this is after Izzy had told Lydia that he wasn't as into her, I thought she was just being more like the kind of person who's like, oh, I'm gonna go commiserate with the girl who also is having a hard time with this guy because I don't know, I want to make it feel like this is normal, like I'm not the only one, like I want to bond with this person over that. That's what it felt like. But now I'm reading everything. If I were Aaliyah, I think two things. Thing number one, either, yeah, you need to, you've known this person, both of them, for less than 10 days. Pick one. Pick one. I know that. I mean, it really depends how I feel, but like, if I was really in love with the guy and I really believe that he was not interested in the former flame, I would have to say, yeah, I think to have the least drama in this relationship, I could be friendly with Lydia, but I can't, like, I'm not going to be best friends. Like, I need to not hear you talk about your ex, and I need to not tell you, I can't confide in you about the person I'm dating right now, because you're going to see it from a different perspective. And I just know that's not healthy. Like, I think you would need to do that.
I would pick neither.
Or okay, also good. Like, also good
for
option.
Me, so like, yes, I think it's universally understood. Uche should have said something, especially with them being so deep and being on the verge of possibly having an engagement. I think what Lydia did was so manipulative. And I think it was unintentionally manipulative, which is the worst part, is that she bonded with Aaliyah specifically because it wasn't that her and Aaliyah just got along really well, which I think is how Aaliyah initially viewed it. She's like, no, we're like sisters. Like, but it was all with, it felt like, okay, I know this person is falling in love with Uche. I know Uche so well. Let me get like, she's getting all of these details about Uche, and whether Lydia intended to or not, it was harmful because it's like, Aaliyah is creating this relationship with you under false pretenses. You are getting all this information about Uche by still being involved. Even when we get the flashback, I'm so glad they did it this way. Props to Love is Blind editors for editing it this way and not showing us their date until after this. And to see her say, well, what if we just start from the beginning? Like, what if we just, start from ground zero? And for Uche to have to be the one to like, no, that's not the experiment. Like, we should try to, actually do the experiment. She's not done with Uche. Like, 3 months ago, y'all slept together 3 months ago. And clearly she said they met in 2020. We know this was filmed in 2022. This is clearly an on again, off again situation that is not done. Like, it may be done because they're like in this experiment. They're like, okay, well, I guess it's done. But for her to be like, someone you're done with, you would not suggest, why don't we just wipe everything clean and just get to know each other more? No.
I feel both ways about this. If he actually talked to her again and was like, you know what? Yeah, I think there is something here with Lydia, then I think I don't think it would like break the experiment. Yes, it's Love is Blind, but it's also like, it's to find love. And if they found love, great. But they've broken up before. So clearly there was a reason for that.
But that's what I'm so unsure about. Was it a breakup, or was it a, hey, one lonely night, hey, this is somebody I can always turn to, and then it happened, and then we just didn't hear from each other again because we were both going through this casting process? I don't know.
I don't know. I feel like it was probably the way I interpreted this, and maybe I'm wrong, was Lydia's not over it. Lydia would have been interested in rekindling things, but Uche wasn't. Just even in the way that he described it, he was like, yeah, we broke up, I wasn't as into her. And the way she describes it was like, we broke up because the timing wasn't right in my life and all this. And I was like, I don't know. I'm not saying that she's wrong. I'm saying they just have different perspectives on it. And so
absolutely. I agree with that.
I don't think that we're gonna, I don't know.
Look, she views him as her ex. He views her as someone he was involved with. Like, went on a few dates.
We went on a few dates. We dated for a little while, and then sometime later we hooked up, and that was it. Like,
yeah,
because the fact that they walk in, she hears his voice and his name, and she goes, "Oh my gosh, here's your last name, here's your job," and stuff. And he's like, "I still can't piece together who you are."
You? Yeah, she has a distinct voice.
Oh yeah, and personality,
distinct
and
voice,
everything,
distinct accent. Like, how does he not initially? Because it was so casual for him,
right?
Like, okay, the reason I feel this way about Lydia specifically is this next part where Aaliyah tells Lydia, like, hey, he told me. And then it's this moment of like, oh my gosh, she's like, yes, Lydia's like, yeah, this is why I did this. This is why I was saying this. Remember, I told you I see you and me. And they have this moment. And then she goes one step further and says all this stuff that Aaliyah literally verbally says, I don't want to know any of this.
But Lydia, twice.
Yes. And Lydia was so just, I don't hear you, whatever. Like, just completely dismissed that to share. Oh, did you know he has a Tesla? Did you know his favorite color is blue? Did you know Kobe, his dog, loves me and pees when he sees me? Did you know he has a big house? Did you know I've been to events with his friends? Oh, and okay, I don't want to, I just want to be honest with you, as if she hasn't already. I just want to be honest with you. We slept together 3 months ago. Too much. Like, literally after the second fact, I was like, stop. What are you doing?
And like the malicious way of looking at this is for people to say, okay, this is extremely calculated and she's saying these things because she wants Aaliyah to be afraid that something could be rekindled. The less malicious way is it's almost like I was dumped and I want to make myself feel like I was more important and involved than maybe I actually was, or like I've just known people who they like to be in the middle of these relationships with someone that they even broke up with, but they like to then share these things to the new girlfriend. I'm like, you don't need to. Anyway,
it's a matter of reading the room, and I feel like I don't think it was intentionally malicious. Like, I don't think she was saying these things for Aaliyah to think that her and Lydia and Uche had a chance. I feel like she was saying these things to say, like, look, I'm his ex and I can tell you all these things so y'all can be good. But it's like, how many times are you sitting down, getting close to having conversations with your significant other's ex and like hearing, like, you don't want to hear all this stuff. You don't want to hear how close you and his dog were, that how much his dog loves you. So, if you're my friend and I invite you over for a barbecue, his dog's going to go crazy over you. Like, that's not something I want. I don't want a constant reminder of his past, which is what it would be if they were friends. So it's like, it all felt so icky, and I felt so bad for Aaliyah because it was just like, all she's trying to do is find love. And she has found herself in this sticky situation where she's just like, okay, how do I move forward? How do I maintain this friendship? Do I want to maintain this friendship? Do I want to maintain this relationship? She just doesn't want to be hurt again, which this is just grounds for being hurt again.
And I think the right choice, you're right. It's probably just to walk away from the whole situation.
Yeah. I just feel like I don't know. There's just no, because like, let's say she drops Uche, but is like, okay, Lydia, you and I can still be besties for the resties. She still has to deal with Lydia and Milton going through this experiment. She wanted that. The only reason she can't have it now is because of this situation with the girl she is befriending. So it's just like, it's just best to not deal with either one of them. It's unfortunate, but I feel like it's just too messy. Yeah. I've known you less than 10 days. How is it already this messy?
Yep. Yeah.
And the fact that Leah was like, I would never deal with this in my real life. I'm like, when you get in situations like that you've never found yourself in, you're like, what is this? Like, this isn't my life. I don't have to deal with this.
Actually, I don't need this. As I thought, it's like, you know what? On second thought, I'm good. Second thought, I don't think I need to deal with this.
Yeah. Because I thought there was a possibility that she was going to be like, okay, whatever, I'm going to move forward with Uche, because they even talked about rings after she expressed her concerns about that conversation with Lydia, and he didn't even handle that well with the recency of it all. Because she's like, somebody you were with 3 months ago. He's just like, look, there's nothing there. I'm like, oh, Mr. Cheating 2 years ago was a big deal. Okay, let's not talk about that. But and for him to say like, she could have really got onto him for just saying, oh, someone from my past, not someone I just recently saw 3 months ago. All of that to say, I'm so glad that when he decides that he wants to, it's proposal day. He thinks he's proposing. It's not just a regular date. He thinks he's walking to the pod to propose. And the producer comes on and is like, hey, she walked away from the experiment. My jaw was on the ground.
I think it's pretty funny that the producers didn't tell him, like,
don't go
in the room with the guys. Yeah, like, no, they wanted this moment.
They're like, this is about to be so shocking.
Do you think they're going to get back together?
So we did, and this could have been very intentional, by only seeing that scene where they're having lunch, right, in the preview, and not showing us anything else. It's like they don't want us to know if there is more. But I also wonder, like, now that she knows this whole story, and then meeting him and actually seeing him, is she going to be like, he's not worth it? Or is she going to be like, oh my gosh, he's a gorgeous man, and like, I can put the rest of that behind us?
I mean, again, Zach and Bliss, like, they met for lunch and then they were in the rest of the show together. So
yeah,
we'll see. I don't know. I do feel like Aaliyah seems like a sweet girl who probably just doesn't need this.
Yeah, she's just like, she's like, I'm not the type of person that is in this type of drama. And so I will say that, because basically what she did was ghost him in this situation. So I will say shout out to Nicole Weaver, who has been on to talk about The Ultimatum with us. She wrote an article on Collider.com called "Ghosting is Acceptable" on season 5 of Love is Blind. It's a pretty good read. I mean, it's just explaining like why, like explaining the whole situation, and then the fact that what else, really, what else should she have done? You know, like,
I think especially if you know this is a hard decision, and like, I'm not saying for all hard decisions in life, but again, you've met this person you only know them for a matter of days.
Yeah.
If this is a hard decision and you've made up your mind, but you don't want to be swayed out of it, like, you don't want to go in there and it's like you don't want to give him a chance to convince you into the drama, right?
Right.
And
which
in
he
that
would have
case,
done. Yeah.
I could see maybe in that case, I would say write a note, leave him a note or something like that explains your thoughts a little. But like, yeah, because if she went back in, she said, you know what, I'm just actually pretty uncomfortable with this whole situation. I feel like this is going to be too much for me, and I'm sorry about that. I feel like he would have been like, well, I forgave you for the things from your past. Why aren't you? It's like, yeah, because this is actually your present. It's not your past.
Yes,
I'm here with Lydia right now. And I just feel like this is probably not for me.
Yeah. Like, y'all were together last quarter. Like, that's too recent. It's way too recent. I can't.
Yes. Yeah. If you had a thing with someone else who's here, within the time that I would have been taking a class in high school, like for one semester, like, no, this is the same grading period. We're not doing this.
Yeah. This is the same. Yeah. That was last 6 weeks. Okay. So yeah. So I'm very glad about Aaliyah making that decision. We'll see what happens. We'll see how it pans out. It's a very real possibility that they could rekindle things, but I'm very interested to see how this conversation goes, especially knowing how Uche has handled things up to this point. I really wonder, is he going to try to make her feel bad for walking away? I was ready to propose to you, and you didn't even show up. Right? Oh my gosh. Imagine that happens. I wouldn't even be surprised. But last but not least, we did have Lydia and Milton. And this felt like I feel like this is the settling relationship.
She's not into him, right?
No.
Like, no.
She's like, I wonder would she have said yes if she knew that Aaliyah had walked away?
And we've had young people on this show before. Ooh, you wonder if she would have said yes. I'm sorry, that what you said just hit me.
Yeah.
Because I feel like she's been in this to the, okay, I got to get back to where I can talk with you, Jay, in person. But it's like, girl, you probably have his number, right?
Yeah, 100%.
I don't know. I mean, she blocked him on Instagram. Anyway, I feel like...
And that's how you know you care. If you're blocking people, you care. That's an action. Yes.
Yeah, you're not over it.
That's intentional.
Although I do think it's healthy to block your exes. I think you don't need to be seeing those things. Even if you're the one who ended something. I think a simple
unfollow. I feel like blocking
or that.
Yeah. Unfollow. Like, I feel like blocking, because people do it, but I feel like blocking is like, I want nothing to do with you. I feel like blocking makes a statement as opposed to a simple unfollow. It's like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. So with Milton, we've had young people on the show. I continue my stance of, in this show where you get engaged and then potentially married, I think there should be an age minimum of like 27. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but like, it's not really a dating show. It's a marriage show. And you can get married young. That's fine. We had people do it before, but I think Milton has got to be the person who he seems like a 24-year-old. Like we've had young people before who seem a little older. He seems 24, and
I will say Mark seemed a little on the show, not considering all the drama that happened after. But Mark did seem like older than what he was.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I feel like a lot of times the younger people, and it's different when both people are young. If you have two people dating and they're both 25, 26, whatever. Like I think we had there were some young people last year, right? Like I feel like Paul and Micah and Irina, like they were all a little bit, they were in their 20s, I think.
Yeah, they were definitely late 20s.
But like, and I know age is not the same for everybody, etc. But like with Milton, he just seems young, not immature, not like, and not in a way where like, you know, Bartise was immature. Like that's a different type of immaturity. Like he just feels young. He feels like the kind of person where if you asked him some interview questions for a job, he'd still be like talking about like the clubs that he was in charge of in high school or college. You know what I mean?
I was like, treasurer of the National Honor Society.
Yeah. And again, that's not bad. Like, but somehow it just feels different when like the most serious things that he's talking about are high school sports related, and that's not to diminish. Like he had a serious situation with his organs and his spine and all that. But like, do you know what I'm saying? It's like it's just the way that he talks. It's the way he tells the stories that feel like they just feel younger. I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah, and even when he was talking with the guys and Uche was trying to press like, you know, hey, you don't have to get engaged. Like, this is in explaining that he didn't even want to, he shut down so quickly with talking about anything with emotions and how he felt about Lydia, which is kind of like, it's different than how Stacey was doing it, where she just wasn't talking about her relationship. It was more so they know he's dating Lydia, but he just didn't want it. Like the feelings like, don't talk about that is how it felt like his reaction was. And even his dates with Lydia, they're just, like she wants so much more out of him. Right. She keeps trying to dig deeper, and it almost feels like she keeps digging to try to find a reason to really like him. And because we already knew she had already kind of cut off Milton when she wanted Izzy. Like it was like, oh, he's too young. First date, he's too young. I'm moving on. I'm into Izzy. Izzy's my number one. Izzy breaks up. She's like, okay, well, I guess Milton, we were going on dates. So Mr. Milton, who couldn't find the cooler in his pod, and it was right next to him.
And he's like, oh, there's an ice box right here. I'm like, yeah, I think he was looking for a mini fridge. Yeah. But like, dude, you walked in, you said, I don't know. Look, I've had moments where I've been oblivious like that too, but like, man, this room is like, 10 by 10. Come on.
Yeah. My mom was like, is he actually serious right now? It's like, yeah, he literally doesn't see it. He did give her a rock because of their conversation about rocks from episode 1. And then they even had conversations about like, oh, like, okay, if I want to go play Pokemon with my friends, like I'd have to ask you, right? It was like, so it's like, he is like, obviously he's into like pretty, I don't know, like nerdy stuff. I don't know if that's the right word to use, but, he's an intellectual. We know he's smart, obviously. But then I think the question here is maturity.
It's a mismatch, like
it really is.
Like I'm several years older than Milton, and like it would not surprise me if a couple of my friends were like, yeah, we're gonna go play Pokemon together. Like that would not surprise me, but that's because it's just the personality type of a lot of the friends that I have. Yeah. We're all like that. It seems look,
we spend hours every Sunday playing Goose Goose Ducks. Like, yeah. We understand. Like
I get it.
Yeah.
But like I can't picture Milton and Lydia together. I can't I get it. They're into rocks, but what else? It kind of feels like they both just, I don't know. We're hoping to have a connection on the show. Like, I don't know.
I feel like she's settling because he's not the type of guy that she would typically go for. And I feel like he is in a position where he's like, I've never met a Lydia. Like, I've never met someone like Lydia who is somewhat interested in me. Yeah. So this is what I'm going for. Sure. He did have a pretty interesting, I guess, thought about himself where he was like, he thinks he's not gonna live that long because of his height. Which I felt like he was kind of being vulnerable, where he was like, I just have this view that people my height don't live this long. And her response was, oh, are you telling me how tall you are?
I have no perspective because I'm looking at all these people. I was looking at him and I'm like, I mean, I guess you seem tallish, but like, you don't look, I don't see him compared to all the other guys and be like, oh my gosh, he's like a foot taller than them. Like, what
He is really tall.
Is he? Okay, I need to look at
him. He's giving 6'6".
Oh, okay, that is tall.
Yeah, when he stands next to other guys, he is towering over them a little bit.
Too tall for me. Once you clear the more than a foot taller than me, it's like,
yeah.
I think that I get that, because I feel like that's a thought that I remember when I was younger, I used to think like I could picture myself growing very old or like dying of a mysterious disease when I'm like 25. Like it's one or the other. Like that was yeah. So I mean, I know that's not the same. That's like me being superstitious and him having like a legitimate.
Yeah, he's like, studies have shown.
Yeah.
You're like,
you're right.
What
you're
studies?
Right. I don't
know. But yeah, they had these moments of just like regular conversation that you could have with anybody. But when she told him about Uche, that shook him a little bit. He was not expecting that. He needed a moment. He left. He came back. He's like, he really needs to process it. He asked how long ago it was, and she was honest, said 3 months ago. So when he proposes, he's like, I'm really in a position where I should just say F it. Which, should you propose if you're just saying, why not? Which is why it feels like he proposed.
I mean, yes, because it's a TV show, and at this point, you might as well write it out. But like, realistically in life, no.
Which is just, it's hilarious, but it's not. Because he said, he's like, I'm thinking like, why not? But then I'm also wanting to consider your feelings. Because, yeah, like Lydia doesn't strike me as someone who will casually handle an engagement not working.
In the real world, yes. On the show, I'm not sure. Lydia just strikes me as someone who, the way she talks about Milton, the way she was crying after he said he needed some time, I'm like, this just feels to me like not exactly like someone putting on a show, but like someone who wants to be in love, who wants this to be bigger than it is.
Yeah.
And isn't thinking realistically about like, wait a second, am I actually into Milton though?
Right.
Like she said that she would never bring up, like that the age gap would never matter and she would never bring it up. And I'm just like, I feel like either that seems like you're not prepared for the future, because that is going to matter at least a little bit. Like, have you guys talked about if you want kids or not? Like what the timeline is? Like, have you thought about any of that?
I feel like they're not seeing past this show.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Like they just don't strike me as like this isn't gonna work out.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we did see in the previews, I think so. I know for sure we saw Lydia and Milton dressed in wedding attire, and we also saw Izzy, or we saw what's her name, Stacy. I don't think we saw Izzy, but we definitely saw Stacy in a wedding dress. Did we see JP and Taylor? I couldn't remember if we got a glimpse.
I feel like I remember seeing a glimpse of Taylor in a wedding dress, but she also wore, I feel like she wore white during the proposal. So maybe I'm just thinking about that.
Okay.
Not the meet and greet, but the like proposal in the pod. Yeah.
So we'll see. I'm not sure. We'll see. But we have 3 engaged couples at this point. We still have to get the reveal with Lydia and Milton, which I think will be very interesting. I feel like she might comment on his mustache. It's like a very prominent mustache.
Yeah.
And as somebody who has a track record on this show of not reading the room, I could see her saying some out-of-pocket stuff to him when they meet. So we'll see. But anything else? Any other comments you have from this drop?
It's interesting. I'm going to be curious to see whether or not we get another couple, or if we're just going to follow these 4. I mean, there might be enough. It seems like there might be enough drama where that's it. You know, it's enough. Or I guess 5 if anything circles back around with Johnny and Chris or not. I feel like we've seen so much Johnny in the pods that she's got to have more of an impact on the rest of the season.
I thought Johnny, like we saw Johnny was a main character in episode 1. So I was so shocked to see her not get engaged. Yeah. So it only leads me to believe we're getting more Johnny.
I think so. Yeah. So I'm excited. I'm excited for the next drop.
Yeah. So is this the first podcast you've done from 2 different locations in the same podcast?
I think so. It's definitely the first podcast I've done from my car. It's very odd.
Yeah.
I'm sure this is not the best listening experience. I'm sure you can hear I feel like there is a motorcycle driving circles around me. That's what it feels like.
Oh no, I can't hear it.
Oh, okay. I can hear it.
Just, yeah. Well, maybe because I'm also hearing a lawnmower in my right ear. So we, know. So awesome. We will be back to talk about the next drop. So we do have, I guess, 4 weeks total of drops. So we have 3 more weeks of drops to bring to you, so with some guests along the way. So definitely stay tuned. Make sure you subscribe to the Love at First Sight feed and you won't miss a podcast. Mary, where can people find you and what are you up to?
You can find me in a parking lot. No. You can find me everywhere at Frail Mary, and check out the coverage that I've been doing of Big Brother 25 on RHAP. And that's pretty much it that I've got going on right now. There's I am firmly in wedding season. There are 3 weddings I've got within the next few months. So cracking down on that right now.
Gotcha. Yeah, and everybody, you can find me at all social media at Asia Like Asia. That's AYSHA like ASIA. Right now, over on post-show recaps, over on the Connect, I am talking about The Other Black Girl with Mari Forth. It is such a good show. It's like a comedic thriller, and quick watch. It's on Hulu, 30-minute episodes. Mari and I are covering 2 episodes per podcast. So far, 3 episodes are out. And so just make sure you go watch the show. I think everyone who has never heard of it and went to watch it, they have been enjoying it and enjoying the podcast. So make sure you go watch the show and catch up on the podcast. And you find that over on post show recaps. And then of course, Big Brother 25 coverage. We're in the swing of things. It's happening. And then anything else I'm up to? I've been months. I haven't podcasted about Married at First Sight for months. It feels really weird, but apparently there might be a premiere in October. We're not so sure. So we don't know what the holdup is, but because they usually give us a month off and then they're back with the new season. So they kind of treat it like 90 Day Fiance where they're just nonstop. So Jason Reed and I are getting a much needed break to enjoy other television. So if you just give me a follow, you can see what I'm up to. But thank y'all so much for sticking with us, and we'll be back next week. Bye.